Hey guys, it's Danae, and I'm back again with another episode of A Millennial Voice, the show. As you see, I have a different setup this week. I have 4 different cereal boxes behind me, all of different flavors, because I have the creator of said cereal on the show with me this week. And I'm so excited about this episode specifically because I feel like it's probably the most unique show that I've done, with the most unique guests that I've had thus far. So without further ado, Emily, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and OffLimits.
Thanks. So nice. So I am Emily, the CEO and founder of OffLimits cereal. We launched about a year ago, and I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about the cereal in general. Like the characters, we're very character forward. So the characters all have really interesting personalities, and really try to understand why there was only Kellogg's, like the fun flavors and colors and characters and cartoons and everything, or Kashi, which is like actually the good ingredients. So I wanted something that didn't sacrifice the fun for the health benefits and like the actual thoughtful ingredient panel. So that's exactly what OffLimits is about, is kind of combining the fun and the nothing artificial kind of vibe,
Yeah.
and bringing everybody into this like cartoon dimension we made for our mascots.
Right, right. So this is like so innovative in general. Because like the cereal, I mean, if you get into the diversity of the characters, I guess it's really not targeted for adults, but it feels like a very adult cereal just because of the healthiness and the, like, it's not like really sugary and things like that. But when you see adult cereals in the supermarket, it's usually like this like bland box that's just like this very basic font. It kind of like, I don't know if you've seen those memes about how like McDonald's went from like being like a really fun kid to like now it looks like a really boring adult because it's like gray. And I think that the same thing kind of happens
Yeah.
with cereal. So I just wanted to know, like, were you in a supermarket and you were like, no, like this isn't like okay, like were you eating cereal and you were like, oh, like there can be more to this? Like what was the initial spark behind OffLimits?
Yeah, I mean, it very much has to do with my somewhat chaotic career path in food art and design. I went to school for fashion design, but very much grew up around the hospitality industry and food, so that was always very close to me.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up doing more trend forecasting, and took what I learned trend forecasting. I was traveling all over the world, writing articles for different outlets. I started hosting this event series called Breakfast Club,
Mm-hmm.
where I would work with Michelin star chefs or chefs who really only have like evening and tasting menus, and they would open their doors in the morning, and we would invite like 30 or so creative people in each city to just like have creative conversations over this one time only kind of meal. And it became, I did like 40 plus around the world, everyone from Enrique Olvera in Mexico City,
Wow.
to Mike Solomonov in Philly, actually. And it was so fun. And through that, I met incredible people. I ended up getting a book deal with Phaidon to write their cookbook about breakfast around the world.
Wow.
So yeah, so I spent 3 years then researching and talking to people. There was over like 100 contributors essentially who I spoke with about like what they eat for breakfast. Call your grandma, call your cousin, like write down the recipe kind of thing, and then let's like translate it and work on it together. So that book came out in summer of 2019, and that was amazing. And after I turned in the book, I was like, whoa, like that was all of my energy. Like, what am I going to do now? And
Yeah.
how do I combine all the things that I love, which is, food and art design kind of thing. And I'm obsessed with cereal. I'm obsessed with like the culture around cereal. And
Mm.
what I realized is that culture hadn't been updated in decades.
Yeah.
So that was kind of when the spark happened.
Right. So would you say that you're kind of in a lane of your own right now when it comes to innovative cereal creation? Because I don't think I know, I've never heard of anybody saying that they're making a cereal. So would you say that this is kind of like a sector that only you're really, exploring right now? Or do you think that that community is also growing?
Well, I mean, it's like a $16 billion market in the US. So it's a huge market here, but run by the major players.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I walked in knowing we were going up against some of the biggest brands on the planet with not a lot of startups. Like there's a lot of granola startups, there's, you know, some kind of in the periphery of cereal, but producing a box of cereal in this way is harder than I ever expected. And now I know why there are not a lot of startups in the space. There are a few newcomers who have come in the past like 2 years or so that have like kind of a similar idea, but they are maybe more focused on like the diet culture side of health food products, which like that's fine. They're being accommodating to a certain group of people. And we're the only ones who are taking on the culture of cereal and like kind of fixing, in my words, like fixing what Kellogg's and General Mills and all the bigger brands are just like refusing to change.
Yeah.
Like Dash, the coffee cereal we have, and the bunny mascot in a power suit over there is the first female identifying cereal mascot in American cereal history, which is,
yeah, when I read that, that's crazy to me because I never, it's what I think is what's even more upsetting is that it's not something that I noticed.
yes. I didn't do it intentionally either. I just built the characters as I feel they need to exist, which is like a diverse group of characters. They all have different like genders, orientations. Like, they're not even really human. So like, what does that mean anyway?
Right.
But all of these bigger brands don't ever want to touch on those subjects because they can be really controversial. But we were like, why is a female cereal mascot so upsetting to people?
Yeah.
And it actually is. Like, we posted a TikTok about it and it went viral. We had like over 3 million views on it and thousands of comments of very misogynistic comments, like really upset that like we were tackling gender in cereal. And at the end of the day, I'm like, these are cartoon characters. Like, why are you so upset about all of this? Like, I just want to see representation in any way that we can, and that includes cereal. So
Right. Yeah. So Dash and Zombie, correct me if I'm wrong, these are your first two flavors.
those are our first two flavors. Yes.
Okay. So coffee, we know what coffee is, but tell me a little bit about this pandan flavor. Why did you choose pandan? Because that was something that I had never heard of until I got your boxes of cereal.
Yeah, so pandan it's like a tropical leaf, and it exists in Southeast Asia as just a staple kind of ingredient.
Okay.
I have a lot of South Asian friends. I grew up between Hawaii and Arizona, and Hawaii has a lot of South Asian food influence. So pandan has always been kind of part of my food circulation. And it's such a special flavor and ingredient. And I thought it would be a great cereal flavor, and it didn't exist. So talked to a bunch of my friends. They kind of like tested and tried it too. It took over a year to kind of get that flavor right. And we're even still working on it because we don't use any artificial colors. And so to get the green color, which pandan is traditionally kind of this green color, but when you bake it, anyway, I won't get super technical about the food side of it, but basically it's really hard to reproduce naturally without adding some extra green color. So we added spirulina and like a few other kind of natural health kind of ingredients to brighten up the color. But pandan as a flavor is this like super vanilla, umami, kind of nutty vibe to it, maybe like a little bit of like coconut notes to it also. But when you try it, you're like, okay, this is good. You get maybe like a little bit of vanilla, and then the aftertaste is like, what did I just eat? I need so much more of it. And it has this kind of like addictive kind of quality to it.
Okay.
So it's used in a lot of desserts in Southeast Asia, but then it's also, the leaves are used to kind of like wrap and steam, cook, fry like a bunch of different dishes. So it's a really prevalent ingredient.
Awesome. And so it's pandan. Thank you. I'm happy that you cleared that up. Okay. So just to get back into, the design and everything like that. Because I think this is like super cool. And then I don't know if you guys look on the back, the back of these boxes, it's literally like a coloring book on your freaking box of cereal. That's so cool. And on your website, I saw that you guys have toys, and I know that you sent me some laces. I know you guys have a bag. So you're really sticking to the essence of what cereal culture really is. It's a fun cereal with a toy in it, but it's also just, marketed for adults and for kids. And I think that is so cool. So that being said, how do you feel like you're feeding your inner child? Feeding, I no pun intended, but how do you feel like you're feeding your inner child with your creation of the cereal and your brand?
It's every day it's something. I mean, the creative side of it is like what gives me joy and like what I want to be putting into this business. So from day one, I mean, I went to art school, so I knew when I was starting the business, because this is such a capital intensive brand to start, I had to raise money. Like, I didn't have the capital on my own to start something like this.
Mhm.
So in order to raise money, I took a bunch of classes, I read a bunch of books, I really tried to learn the business side along with the fundraising side. And I knew I would have to then walk into those investor meetings with an A-list lineup and understanding of what I feel really powerful as a founder, which is kind of the marketing world building side of things.
Mhm.
So from day one, and these are all through kind of past projects like Pentagram, like super prolific design agency. One of the partners designed my cookbook, and when I told her that we were working on this project, she wanted to do it, and she was so excited about it. And that was Astrid Strawbro. She's part of the UK office. And then Shepard Fairey, also super prolific artist, incredible. Like, we worked with him and his team on a few projects earlier having to do with breakfast, having to do with art, and they wanted to take on doing the characters. So immediately we walked in with this like incredible kind of art driven story and team behind us. So that's what was really helpful.
Wow, that's beautiful. And I know, you mentioned the art, and I know you've done exhibits and you had like online galleries and stuff like that too, and you sell prints, which again is just it's so on brand, but it's still so unique for cereal. And so for somebody who's just taken on this like huge industry, kind of, I mean, you've had help, but the vision was like your own. I can only imagine just how like mentally taxing it could be sometimes. And I know that you just came up on your 1 year anniversary, so congratulations to you on that. But what have you learned over the past year about business or about art or about creating something like this?
That it takes a team,
Yeah.
100%. Because switching brains, what the most exhausting part is really like trying to fall into that world. Like when like we just started working on animated content with the characters, so we have some of that stuff coming out, which is so fun. So I'm getting into that world and I'm like building an animated show in my head, and then literally an hour later I have to like have an investor call about like projections and all this stuff, and the switching back and forth can get exhausting. So finding that kind of balance and support system to help alleviate some of that tension, I think, or like the transition even, has been really helpful. And I mean, I knew everything costs more than you think it does, but like, I think there's a lot of pressure for female founders, especially, to make the brands that they start seem super glossy and maybe like act like things are always going better than they really are, and like put on this kind of presentation. But it's all a lie. Like, everyone's trying to figure it out, and even if brands who are doing successful are still trying to like get to that next level.
Right.
So seeing kind of behind the curtain of how things really work has been super eye-opening to me, and honestly given me even more drive to want to make this successful.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. So, I mean, in the beginning, did you see it taking on this whole entire like life? Because at this point, it seems like something that's, beyond you. It's like a whole entity. It's a world that you've created for people in general. So, do you think that you initially thought that it was going to become all that it has?
Yes. So I have always thought of the business as kind of its own entity, and like I talk about it like that. It's like another team member. We call our characters team members. And the way that I built the characters, was really out of like a low point in my life. Like it there was a lot of personal stuff going on. A bunch of big work stuff had kind of ended. I had no idea what my next big move was going to be. And I was really just trying to like process my emotions.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of creative people feel this kind of like, if you're not a starving artist, or you're not like putting like over committing your energy to your work, that you're not doing enough.
Right.
And I don't know, art school taught me that, like all these like kind of things have put a lot of creative people in that mindset, and it's really just not true. So I
Mhm.
wanted a way to kind of like sort that out and normalize it a little bit.
Mhm.
So each of these characters have really extreme personalities and emotional life cycles like human cycles. Like Dash is always trying to be successful and is, but like feels all this social pressure to like be at all the events, like be working and hustling and side hustle for your side hustle kind of vibe. And then
I am
Zombie is,
Dash.
yeah, exactly. So, and what's interesting is like you can be all the characters. It just depends like what time of day or week or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
So, that's what's cool about them, because then Zombie is the opposite, where like when you're feeling sad and like a little defeated, a little depressed, like Zombie is kind of that like comfort in that, like that creative energy that you find when maybe you're feeling a little bit sad.
Mm.
Or Zombie is kind of like that just kind of calm, cool kid, like nothing bothers them kind of thing, like the stress doesn't get to them, whereas Dash is like a little more anxious and like high strung about things.
Yeah, so let's talk about Zombie. So they, because is this like is this a non-binary character or it's just androgynous?
We like internally like non-binary, but again, like I don't want to personally impart anything on these characters, because I really want them to be like a mold and a friend to like comfort people. So
Right.
we want to put the platform out there like, hey, we're not afraid to talk about this stuff, but it is whatever you think it is.
Whatever you
So
wanted. Okay.
yeah.
So okay, but the reason that I brought Zombie up, aside from the fact that you were just talking about this pandan, right? Pandan
Yeah.
flavor is because Zombie won a mascot of the year, right? Cereal mascot of the year.
Yes.
Yeah, that's so cool. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean it was so fun. It was this kind of like a whole Twitter extravaganza thing that happened, and we had launched pretty recently, and the whole team just like got everyone involved. So Zombie was up against like all of these crazy cereal mascots, and they just kind of jumped in, and everyone was like, who is this? Like, what is this character? What's going on here? So it was really fun to kind of show our personality and like the internet culture of the OffLimits personality, because I think we really won everyone over, because they were surprised a brand was like saying the things we said and got like so engaged in something like that. So
Yeah, yeah. Wow. So I mean, everything is so thought out, everything's so intentional, the characters, personalities, the colors, the flavor. How important for you as a business owner, how important would you say it is to be intentional in every sector of your work? And
um
how has it aided in
it's a
your
really it's a really good question. It's super hard to answer, because as a founder you need to have a clear vision. So I see the business in the future exactly how I want it to be, and it really revolves around like these characters, this world that we're building.
Mhm.
Any Like I have a lot of intention in the day-to-day stuff, but I think the best qualities of a business is being flexible, and basically you have to be prepared to try everything really quickly and just see what works.
Yeah.
So people started really, it's taking a minute for sure. Like we took the road less traveled when it comes to like general consumer understanding of who we are, but as somebody who feels like I've been more part of like counterculture communities than like the general public, like my whole career and personal life and everything, it was important to me to kind of like represent that in a brand as well. So it's always harder to get people to understand who you are, but it's important. So we're definitely putting in the work and seeing what works and changing where we need to.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so back to the cereal. I know you mentioned that Flex and Spark are new. These are your new flavors, right? Are they out yet?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
they just launched yesterday, so
Congratulations.
good
Yeah.
timing. Thank you.
Yeah, it is great timing. And I know you were saying that strawberry is really good, so I'm excited to try that one. But so do you have
Yeah.
any new flavors in the works, and how difficult has it been for you to come up with flavors?
So I have about 300 flavor ideas in my head.
Wow.
It's
Okay.
just like producing them that then becomes challenging.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, like coffee and pandan are like a little bit more unique, so I wanted to round it out a little bit more and have a strawberry and cinnamon flavor.
Mhm.
But the cinnamon flavor, as you were saying you tried, it kind of reminds me of like a churro or like
Yeah,
horchata or something like that. Like there's something a little extra to it that makes it special.
yeah.
And then the strawberry is like mind blowing because we don't use any artificial ingredients or anything like that. Like we have organic kind of plant-based everything, and we use like freeze dried strawberry powder, like mashed strawberries. It's
Wow.
like it's so good.
Yeah.
Um so that's been really fun to see everyone's response to the new characters, to the new flavors.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm just like so blown away because I knew before I talked to you that it was plant-based, gluten-free, and all those great things, and you don't use any artificial flavors. So I can only imagine what like a day in the lab is like for you, because it's like literally you're trying to make something work out of like essentially nothing. So I think it really lends itself to your expertise, and also I think that you are exactly where you're meant to be in this. And as somebody who is I have nut allergies, but I'm a vegetarian most of the time, vegan some of the time. And so to
Mhm.
have a cereal that I can eat and feel fine about eating because I know that it's not nutty, really
Right.
means a lot to me. And I think that's what a lot of people kind of forget in the cereal industry. A lot of people, they're leaning towards the vegan and or like vegetarian sort of thing, which is really popular right now, for good reason. But I think a lot of times people don't take into consideration the allergies that people have, like just because I run into this a lot. The reason that I can't be vegan is because most of the stuff is like nut based. And so
Right.
I really appreciated that about your cereal in general, is that I could feel comfortable eating it, not thinking that I'm going to have any sort of reaction, because it lists on the box the ingredients, and the only thing I mean, it's obviously made in a factory with nuts like most things, but the only thing that I saw was like coconut, which is fine for me.
Right.
So yeah. But anyway, that was just my little nod to you, because I felt
I
really
appreciate it.
I felt really appreciative, because it's obviously the move toward veganism is still relatively new, and things are basically the same. If you go to a vegan product, you're looking at it and it's like supposed to be a substitute for dairy, it's usually nut. So anyway, that's my whole little spiel.
I'm
But
glad you noticed though.
yeah,
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 because that kind of goes to like the mixing Kashi and Kellogg's thing. Like all of it is really intentional. Like I eat mostly plant-based, and I was truly shocked to find out that most cereal, like the Kellogg side of cereal, the fun cereals, are not plant-based because of either chemicals or like
yeah.
I don't know, it's
It's
really
crazy
weird.
stuff. Yeah. So, on your website, which reminds me so much of Millsberry. I don't know if you played with Millsberry. It was like a website that was around like in the early 2000s, but it was very like bright. It was character animated. It had the what was the one that had the bunny? Tricks, maybe?
Oh yeah.
So, but it like employed some of the serial I
Oh,
guess characters back in the day, and like you could play games. So your website reminds me so much of that. And it's even cooler that you did not play Millsberry, because there is nowhere where the inspiration came from. It's like, I mean, being in your world, it must be so interesting, because it's so like not centered around what adulthood should look like, which I think is a good thing. I think, we get so stuffy and just so like just unwilling to explore like our child mind because people tell us that we shouldn't. And so I was just amazed by like literally how conclusive everything is and how everything ties together between the games and the characters and the serial and even the personal profiles. Um, but when I was on your website, I saw one of your taglines, or your tagline is, "In a world full of rules, we do what is off limits." And obviously, your cereal is called Off Limits. And so I wanted to know what that tagline meant to you specifically.
Yeah, it's interesting. It kind of came a little later. Like that was not our first tagline. And I
Oh,
think that
wow.
tagline came from a lot of challenges that
Yeah.
we've had. And when we launched, a lot of people kind of saw what we were doing and decided to like adopt some of the things that we were doing that they thought maybe was like interesting, and as creative people are very used to happening.
Yeah.
But like to do what's off limits, like is embodying us as a brand, us as a team, like including the cereal mascots. Like the cereal mascots in themselves are controversial, and kind of anything that feels like you're going against the grain or like being a little counterculture about things. So not being afraid to like have really kind of interesting defiant flavors,
Right.
and just kind of own that the creative side of the business is just as important, and we're not here to kind of like peddle products. I think like brands need to be really held accountable from the ground up
Yeah.
moving forward, because nobody wants to like have a repeat of like the mega brands that exist right now.
Exactly, exactly. And that ties directly into what it says right here is, "We never put you in a box. Boxes are for cereal," which I love that. It's so clever.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, your marketing has just been amazing. And the last thing I want to talk to you about is, aside from all the amazing work that you're doing, like with inclusivity, you also, it says you purchase, your purchase helps us support school art programs, which is really cool. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So we work with Free Arts NYC, and they basically, like from day one, the business was kind of built around like donating a percentage of sales, but then also kind of doing all these activations to support youth programming, youth art programming, whether that's like after school, in school, or like any way that we can kind of like be a part of that,
Mhm.
to encourage kids at a really young age to be creative and to own their creativity as something that can be like entrepreneurial versus like teaching them to work for somebody else, and like teaching them the value of the art that they make and their kind of creative abilities as well. So we're excited to like dive into that so much more now that we can actually kind of gather again, and school is back in session for the most
Right,
part.
right, right. And you did start during a pandemic, which is amazing, by the way, too, because your success over the past year is just, I don't know. The pandemic obviously like shifted so many things for so many people, but the fact that you started this brand during it and you've just like been able to like kind of hit the ground running from it is really amazing. Or during it, I'm sorry, is really amazing.
Yeah.
But okay, so my last thing is, I am a dry cereal eater, but I know that a lot of people are not. And I know that you have this really cool new thing that you wanted to talk about that I mean, you would need milk for it. So like I'm just gonna let you like introduce it, because now I feel like I need to go get some milk, just like specifically some oat milk, specifically just
Definitely.
so I can. But go ahead, yeah.
I think you'll have fun with it either way. It doesn't necessarily need to be in milk, but obviously that's where like the whole experience happens.
Uh-huh.
So what I found, and this is for me personally too. I mean, I love cereal dry, by the way, also. But what we found is that a lot of people mix cereal flavors, and like that's what they love doing. And people really like to personalize their bowl. Some people add, I mean, whatever milk you add, if you add milk, mixing flavors, adding berries, whatever you want. So I wanted to take that concept to the next level and be like, all right, let's like really let people customize what they want. So we developed this like sachet that can go with any of the cereals, and we'll probably do like more fun stuff like that too. But the first sachet that we launched is cereal glitter. So they're like these little glitter packets, and it's a combination of edible glitter and butterfly pea flower, which is a natural ingredient that turns liquid blue or like purple essentially. It's really fun, and it's used in cocktails a lot. Like any of those like bright blue drinks you see, it's either spirulina, which we use in zombie to make green, or butterfly pea flower. So literally you sprinkle a little bit of this even on your cereal and it's like a disco ball. And then as you kind of stir it around, the milk just turns blue. And like, talk about childlike excitement, but I mean, definitely for kids, but also for adults. It's just so fun.
Yeah,
So,
that's awesome.
yeah. So we're we have like a little thing going on right now because it's our birthday month. So we have like, you can try all 4 flavors and you get a free sample of the cereal glitter because the glitter officially launches in September. So
Awesome, awesome.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much. So I know that your cereal is like in a couple stores across the country. But for people who just might not be in reach of a store that sells your product, where can they find it?
Yeah, the easiest way to get it is through our website, which is eatofflimits.com.
Okay.
And Eat Off Limits is our handles for everything as
For
well.
everything. Awesome, awesome. Well, that was all I had for you, Emily. Is there anything else that you wanted to include before we say goodbye?
I'm good. This was so fun.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Emily, thank you so much for being here. And thank you for sending me all the cereal. I cannot wait to try every single last one. I tried Flex, the cinnamon first, as I told you, because I love cinnamon flavor. So I'm excited to try everything else, specifically now this pandan flavor, now that I know how to say it the right way. And yeah, I'm so excited to see your brand just continue to grow and expand. And please definitely keep me updated, so I can keep my viewers updated. And also for you guys, my viewers, I want to thank you guys so much for being here for another episode of Millennial Voices Show every Sunday at 2 p.m. You can check us out at www.phyllissun.com if you're looking for our articles, or you can get us in print for only $40 a year. Again, Emily, thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to connecting with you in the future.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.